A young millionaire was heading to a crucial meeting in another city when suddenly he came across a homeless woman under the heavy rain with a baby in her arms. Without thinking twice, he handed her the keys to his house. Upon returning, he entered without warning and was shocked by what he saw. It was a hectic day in Leon, Mexico. While Javier walked among the attendees of one of the most important architecture events in the country, the contrast between the luxury that surrounded him and the real purpose of the night was evident. Although the environment was full of glitz and ostentation, the true purpose of the event was to raise funds for social housing projects. Several renowned architects, including Javier, had donated their designs for these initiatives, and the evening was focused on turning those plans into reality. For some, the occasion was just an opportunity to showcase their status, but Javier stood out for his presence, just as much as the projects bearing his signature did. Despite his success, people talked about the change in his character after the sudden death of his young wife and the responsibility of caring for his sick father. Some considered him distant, but those who understood the weight of life knew that this coldness was just his way of coping with adversity. In the middle of the event, Javier met Elena, an iconic figure in the architecture world, recognized for her vast career and achievements. "Javier, it's always a pleasure to see you here. It's inspiring to see someone of your level," she commented with a penetrating look. "I've heard that, despite your busy schedule, you've dedicated yourself to caring for your father. It's admirable." Javier gave a polite smile and nodded, though he couldn't help but feel out of place in such a superficial environment. Sensing his discomfort, Elena added, "These events may seem frivolous, but sometimes they reveal more than they appear. What brings you here today, Javier? It doesn't seem like it's just for professional contacts." Javier responded with a sad smile. "My presence here is more of a commitment than a desire. For me, architecture was never just about blueprints and buildings. It's marked by human experiences and lessons I learned from my father." He paused, lost in memories. "My father, despite all the difficulties, always found ways to help others. He was a simple man, but with a huge heart. He raised me alone, and every sacrifice he made was a life lesson for me." Elena listened attentively, reflecting respect in her expression. "It's rare to find someone who keeps those values, especially after achieving so much success. Your father must be an extraordinary person." "He is," Javier replied, with a gleam of pride in his eyes. "He did everything to get us ahead, from fixing things for the neighbors to giving classes. He always said that a person's true wealth isn't in what they possess, but in what they can give to others." Elena nodded, understanding the depth of his words. "That says a lot about who you are, Javier, and how you manage your life and career. Many here could learn from you." Javier thanked her with a smile. "I just try to live in a way that makes my father proud. He taught me that the true architecture of life is in building bridges between people, in creating spaces of understanding and support." Elena returned his smile with sincere admiration. She too had started from the simplest beginnings, working hard to reach the top of her career, but in her eyes, there was still a latent sadness. She had not started a family, and that part of her life remained wrapped in reserved silence. At the end of the event, Javier returned home, a place that had become more of a refuge than just a residence. Upon arriving, he found his father, Mr. Manuel, watching a late-night program. Despite his health issues, Don Manuel maintained a lively spirit and a clear mind. "How was the event, son?" he asked with genuine interest. "Did they manage to raise enough?" "It went quite well, despite the arrogance of some." At the end of the event, Javier returned home, a place that had become more of a refuge than just a residence. Upon arriving, he found his father, Mr. Manuel, watching a late-night program. Despite his health issues, Don Manuel maintained a lively spirit and a clear mind. "How was the event, son?" he asked with genuine interest. "Did they manage to raise enough?" "It went quite well, despite the arrogance of some attendees focused on their wealth. I spoke with Elena about the importance of what we do for society, replied Javier as he sat next to his father. After a brief chat, Javier got up and headed to the kitchen. I'm going to prepare something to eat. Is there anything in particular you'd like? He asked. Whatever you make will be fine, son. Don't worry too much about me, his father replied with a warm smile. Later, while helping his father go to bed, Javier mentioned his plans for the next day. Dad, early tomorrow I have to travel for that meeting about the new project. I'll leave everything ready here, and Mrs. Valdez promised to come check on you. Don Manuel, settling into bed with a tender expression, responded, You're a good son, Javier. Go with peace of mind. I'm proud of you. Don Manuel had faced many hardships in the past. After Javier's mother left, he took on the enormous responsibility of raising him alone. Despite financial difficulties, he always prioritized Javier's education, convinced that it was the key to a better future. Everything he earned went towards his son's studies. Thanks to his effort and dedication, Javier took advantage of every learning opportunity, becoming the successful architect he is today. Even after achieving success, he never forgot his father's sacrifices, always staying by his side and caring for him with the same gratitude and love he received during his childhood. The next morning, Javier got up early, preparing for the important day ahead. He dressed carefully, choosing a formal suit for the crucial meeting in a nearby city. As he left the house, the rain began to intensify. His driver, already familiar with Javier's habits, was waiting for him in the car. It seems the weather won't favor us today, Mr. Javier, commented the driver as he saw him approach. The traffic in the neighboring city was a mess due to the storm. As the car moved slowly through the traffic jam, Javier, looking out the window, saw a scene that deeply moved him. A homeless woman with a baby in her arms, desperately trying to protect him from the rain. Without hesitation, Javier told the driver, "Stop the car, please. I need to help that woman." The driver, knowing Javier's compassion, warned him, "But Mr. Javier, you'll get wet and ruin your suit. Besides, we have an important meeting." Javier, firm, responded, "The suit doesn't matter. That woman needs help now." He got out of the car and approached the woman, offering his assistance. "Can I help you? You and your baby can't stay here under this rain. Do you have anywhere to go?" The woman, still surprised, replied in a trembling voice, "No, we have nowhere to go." Feeling the urgency of the situation, Javier ran back to the car, grabbed a set of keys, and returned. "Mariana, that's her name. Here are the keys to my father's house, which is empty for now. You can stay there with your daughter." He also offered that the driver take them, along with a stop to buy some provisions. The driver, used to Javier's kindness, carried out his task. However, when trying to help Mariana, he encountered her distrust. "I don't know you. I've heard horrible stories and I don't want to take any risks," she said fearfully. To reassure her, the driver showed her photos of his family and assured her that Javier only wanted to help. After hesitating, Mariana finally accepted the offer and headed with her daughter to the house. After his meeting ended, Javier anxiously asked the driver how Mariana and her daughter were doing. Upon hearing that everything had gone well, but that the driver had left them at the entrance to the street, Javier grew concerned. "You should have left them at the door, especially with this rain." Although upset, he decided to stop by the next day to make sure they were all right. Upon arriving home, Javier was greeted by Mrs. Rojas, who informed him with some unease. "Mr. Javier, your father decided to go to the other house. He said he was feeling better and wanted to spend a few days there." Surprised, Javier reacted with concern. Did he go alone? He shouldn't have taken that risk. Despite his reservations, he understood his father's determination. Worried about the situation, Javier immediately headed to the house. Upon arriving, he saw an ambulance at the door and his father being carried out on a stretcher. He ran to ask what had happened, and the doctor explained, "Your father suffered a stroke, but thanks to the quick action of the woman who was in the house, his life was saved." Javier felt a mixture of relief and gratitude. After accompanying his father to the hospital, he returned to the house to speak with Mariana, determined to show his gratitude and to make sure she and her daughter were well taken care of. Javier, trying to hide his concern after the scare with his father, approached Mariana and her daughter. Despite his efforts, the tension was still reflected on his face. "Mariana, I don't know how to thank you for everything you did. The doctor even thought you were my wife," Javier said with a slight smile, trying to lighten the moment. Mariana, sensing the seriousness of the situation, responded gently, "You don't have to thank me, Mr. Javier. I did what anyone would have done in my place. I was in the right place at the right time." Javier observed the groceries she had bought, noticing that they were limited to the essentials. "I see you only bought the basics. You could have taken more things. You don't need to restrict yourself," he said, concerned about whether she had everything she needed. Mariana looked at him, a mixture of gratitude and nervousness in her eyes. "I didn't want to take advantage of your generosity. You've already done so much for us." There was a brief silence, during which Javier felt a deeper connection with Mariana. "I'd really like to know more about you and your daughter, to understand how you got into this situation. If you feel comfortable telling me, I'd like to listen," Javier expressed with genuine interest. Mariana took a breath, considering whether she should open up. She looked at her daughter and then at Javier before starting. "I never knew my mother," she said softly. "I grew up with a distant father, always drunk, barely aware of my existence." Javier listened intently, feeling the strength behind her words. "I wanted to study, but my father never allowed it. I would read in secret after he fell asleep, dreaming of a better life." She paused, lost in her memories. "Over time, things only got worse. My father sank deeper into drinking and I couldn't help him. Until I met someone," she continued, her voice breaking. "He was kind, seemed perfect. We were together for a while and I got pregnant. I thought I'd finally have a family, but when he found out about the pregnancy, he disappeared." Javier kept his gaze fixed on Mariana, feeling both her pain and resilience. "I tried to hide the pregnancy, but when my father found out, he was furious. He kicked me out of the house without letting me say a word." With a serious expression, Javier asked, "How did you manage to survive?" "Begging, sleeping on the streets. When my daughter was born, it was the people on the streets who helped me. I was terrified, but I had to be strong for her," Mariana replied with a trembling but firm voice. Javier, impressed by Mariana's strength, said with admiration, "You're incredibly strong. You've faced an immense struggle." With a sad smile, Mariana replied, "I had no choice. Life hasn't been kind, but I couldn't give up for my daughter. I'd do it all over again if necessary." Javier looked at her with empathy and she added, "When I saw all your father's books, I felt like I was in paradise. I love reading, but I never had access to so many books." With a warm smile, Javier said to her, "You can read as many as you want, Mariana. Consider them yours too." Before leaving, Javier took out an envelope and offered it to Mariana. "Here's something to help you with expenses," he said softly. Upon opening the envelope, Mariana was surprised to see the amount of money. "This is too much, Javier. I can't accept so much," she said with a trembling voice. "Please accept it," Javier insisted. "You and Sofia need it more than I do. Buy whatever you need." Tears of gratitude appeared in Mariana's eyes. "You're giving me more than help. You're giving me hope." Amidst that emotion, Mariana timidly asked, "Can I ask you something? Are you married, Javier?" With a sigh and a shadow crossing his face, Javier replied, "I was. My wife passed away in an accident a month after we got married, 3 years ago." Mariana, shocked by the revelation, whispered, "I'm so sorry, Javier." He nodded slightly. "It's okay, it was hard, but I've learned to live with it. The pain never completely goes away, but we keep moving forward, right?" Mariana nodded, sharing an unexpected bond with Javier through their experiences of loss and overcoming hardship. Javier stood up to leave, reminding her, "If you need anything, don't hesitate to call me." "Thank you, Javier," Mariana replied sincerely. "Really, thank you for everything." Javier returned a somewhat melancholic smile. "Take care, Mariana. Remember, you're not alone." With those words, he left, leaving Mariana immersed in a mix of gratitude, hope, and a new sense of belonging. As Mariana became more integrated into the daily life of Javier's home, he began to think about her long-term well-being. One day, while they were talking in the kitchen, Javier brought up an important topic. "Mariana, I've been thinking," he began seriously. "I'd like to pay you a salary. You've been incredible taking care of my father and helping around the house, and I think it's only fair that you have your own income." Mariana looked at him in surprise. "Javier, that's not necessary. You've already given us a home and everything Sofia and I need." But Javier insisted, "I know, but it's important to me that you feel independent. I want you to be able to buy whatever you want for yourself and for Sofia, without having to ask for anything." Moved, Mariana felt a lump in her throat. "Thank you, Javier. You don't know how much this means to me. It's been so long since I've felt valued and free." From that day on, Mariana began receiving a regular salary, which gave her a new sense of autonomy. For the first time in years, she could buy clothes for her daughter, books for herself, and even save money for the future, all without the feeling of dependence. This newfound independence brought a special sparkle to Mariana's eyes, and she began to walk with more confidence and assurance. Javier's kindness and respect gave her more than just a roof over her head. They gave her the chance to rebuild her life with dignity. As time passed, the relationship between Javier and Mariana grew closer and more affectionate. Javier especially enjoyed spending time with Sofia, Mariana's little daughter, and he often shared his passion for architecture with Mariana. She, in turn, showed genuine interest, absorbing every word and dedicating herself to reading the books Javier recommended to her. This connection, deepening more and more, began to evolve into something more than just friendship. Although Mariana felt in her heart that she was falling in love with Javier, she didn't know how to express those feelings and feared they might not be reciprocated. One day, Javier decided to talk to his father about what he was feeling. Sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Javier confessed, "Dad, I think I'm falling in love with Mariana. It's the first time in years I've felt something like this, but I don't know what to do." His father, with a wise smile, replied, "Son, life is too short for doubts. If you feel that way about Mariana, you need to tell her. You deserve to be happy." Javier, still thoughtful, replied, "What if she doesn't feel the same way?" "You'll never know if you don't try. And from what I can see, the way she looks at you says a lot," his father encouraged him. Inspired by those words, Javier decided that it was time to be honest with Mariana. That night, after putting Sofia to bed, Javier sat next to Mariana in the living room. With his heart pounding, he broke the comfortable silence. "Mariana, I need to talk to you about something important." She set the book aside and looked at him attentively. "Sure, Javier, tell me." Taking a breath to gather his courage, Javier expressed what he had been feeling for some time. "In this time, I've started to feel something more for you, more than just friendship. You've brought new light into my life and into this house. I care about you and Sofia more than I ever imagined." Mariana's eyes lit up, surprised but excited by Javier's words. "Javier, I feel something for you too. You've been incredible with us," she responded with a trembling voice. Javier gently took her hand. "Mariana, I want to be here for you, not just as a friend, but as someone who really cares about you and Sofia. I would love to be a part of your lives." Moved, Mariana shed a few tears of emotion. "That means so much to me. Sofia and I already consider you part of our family." From that day on, their relationship blossomed. Although their love grew, not everyone looked favorably upon their union. When they attended social events, malicious comments were frequent. Some people spoke disparagingly about Mariana, calling her the beggar that Javier took in. However, Javier stood firm, ignoring the criticism and supporting Mariana, who felt increasingly confident by his side. At one of these events, a cocktail at an art gallery, Elena, a well-known figure in Javier's social circle, approached the couple. "Javier, Mariana, it's a pleasure to see you here," she said with a polite smile but a scrutinizing look. "I've heard about your relationship, and I want to congratulate you," she added, maintaining a cordial tone. Although Mariana thanked her, she couldn't help but notice Elena's critical gaze. Feeling somewhat uncomfortable, Mariana responded politely. Elena, apparently satisfied with the response, invited them to a dinner at her home the following week. Javier, feeling the social pressure, accepted the invitation, exchanging a glance of approval with Mariana. When the day of the dinner arrived, Javier and Mariana were impressed by the elegance of Elena's house, clearly decorated with the taste of an expert architect. However, despite its splendor, the house conveyed a feeling of coldness, a space without warmth or soul. During the evening, Elena showed polite kindness, but Mariana couldn't shake the feeling that there was something hidden behind her smile. As they left the house that night, Javier and Mariana looked at each other, aware of the subtleties of the evening. "I hope it didn't make you too uncomfortable," said Javier with concern. Mariana smiled softly. "Don't worry, Javier. I think it was an interesting experience." From then on, although they continued to face social challenges, their bond grew stronger, knowing that the most important thing was the mutual support and understanding they had built together. Elena observed Mariana with an enigmatic expression, while her gaze reflected something more than simple curiosity. In the middle of the conversation, Elena began to speak about her personal life, revealing fragments of a difficult past. She spoke of how she had faced injustice and loneliness in her youth, leaving Javier and Mariana puzzled about the purpose of this confession. Javier, feeling that there was more behind Elena's words, decided to be direct. "Mrs. Elena, with all due respect, I'm a little lost. Could you explain to us why you invited us to this dinner?" Elena sighed deeply, as if gathering the courage for what she was about to say. She stood up and went to get a photo album, which she carefully placed on the table. Upon opening it, she showed a picture of herself many years ago, visibly pregnant. Javier and Mariana looked at the photo, still not understanding. "Where is the child?" Javier asked, trying to understand the connection. Elena, with tears welling up in her eyes, turned to Mariana. "The child is here. It's you, Mariana." The words struck like lightning, leaving both of them in shock. Mariana looked at the photo, and then at Elena, unable to process what she had just heard. "I am your daughter?" Mariana asked, her voice breaking with emotion. The atmosphere filled with tension as the revelation sank in. Javier, in disbelief, intervened. "This is incredible, Elena. Mariana never knew her mother. How can you be so sure she's your daughter?" Mariana, still trying to process the situation, looked between Javier and Elena, trying to understand what was happening. Elena, visibly moved, began to tell her story. "When I was young, I met Mariana's father. Although he had problems with drinking, I thought he could be a good man. We were together, and I became pregnant. But after Mariana was born, everything changed. He became violent, and the day we left the hospital, he took my baby and disappeared. The story was heartbreaking," Elena continued. "I did everything I could to find you. I hired detectives, spent all my resources, but it seemed like you had vanished. For years there were no clues, no trace of you." Mariana, listening to every word, felt a mix of anger and understanding for the woman in front of her. "So the man who raised me, kidnapped me?" Mariana asked, her voice trembling. Elena nodded while tears fell uncontrollably. "Yes, Mariana. He took the most precious thing I had, and I've spent my entire life looking for you." The silence that followed was heavy. Mariana, her heart racing, looked at Elena and asked firmly, "How can you be so sure that I'm your daughter?" Why now? Elena, trying to control her emotions, explained, "When I saw you at the event with Javier, something stirred inside me. I felt an immediate connection, but it was when I noticed the mark on your hand that I knew it was you. It's identical to mine, the same one you had as a baby. That led me to investigate further, until I finally located your biological father. He was living on the streets in a terrible state. It was then, in the middle of his delirium, that he confessed everything." Javier and Mariana remained silent, processing the story. Elena continued, "After everything he did, I decided to place him in a care facility. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he's now receiving the help he needs. Despite the harm he caused, I couldn't continue holding a grudge. Seeing my daughter here in front of me is enough to heal any wound." Elena's words resonated deeply with Mariana, who finally found the courage to speak. "It's hard to process all of this, but I appreciate that you took care of him. Despite everything, he's still my father." Javier, observing the connection forming between the two women, softly said, "It's an incredible story, and although all of this is hard to believe, it seems that the pieces are finally falling into place." Over time, the relationship between Elena and Mariana began to blossom. They both dedicated time to getting to know each other, trying to make up for lost time. During one of her visits, Elena expressed her desire to support Mariana's dreams. "You've always wanted to study more, haven't you?" she asked, as they served tea on the terrace of her home. With eyes full of hope, Mariana nodded. "Yes, I always dreamed of being an architect, but I never had the means to do it." Elena smiled warmly. "Then I want to help you fulfill that dream. I'll take care of all the expenses so you can study at the best architecture school." Tears of gratitude welled up in Mariana's eyes. "Would you really do that for me? I don't know how to thank you." Elena tenderly took Mariana's hand. "After all that we've lost, it's the least I can do. Besides, I've decided to prepare a room here for Sophia. I want to be close and be a part of her life, something I couldn't do with you." Moved, Mariana let the tears flow freely. "Thank you, Elena. Sophia will be thrilled to have her grandmother close." With this new beginning, both women started building a relationship based on love, understanding, and the hope for a better future, intertwining their lives in ways neither of them had imagined possible. During one of the many encounters Mariana and Elena shared, the conversation took a deeply emotional turn. While Sophia played in the garden, Elena decided to open her heart. "Mariana, after finding you, my greatest wish is that you could consider me as a mother. I know it's a process and that all of this is very recent for you, so I respect your time. I just want you to know that I will do whatever it takes to earn that place in your life." Moved by Elena's words, Mariana responded sincerely, "Elena, you're already doing so much for me and for Sophia. I appreciate every one of your gestures, and I know that with time we will grow closer." As the months went by, their relationship grew naturally and spontaneously. Mariana frequently visited Elena's home, where Sophia found a second home. The little girl, completely at ease in Elena's presence, filled the house with laughter and joy, bringing to both women the warmth of family that they had longed for. Years passed, and Mariana, now in the final stretch of her architecture career, was preparing for the most important day of her life, her graduation. This achievement represented much more than the culmination of her studies. It symbolized the overcoming of all the hardships she had faced. The ceremony was filled with professors, friends, and family, all eager to celebrate her success. As she walked down the aisle toward the stage, Mariana felt a mixture of pride and gratitude. She searched the audience for three people who had been fundamental pillars in her life: her husband, who had supported her unconditionally; her father-in-law, who had become a constant father figure; and of course Elena, her greatest motivator in the world of architecture. As she stepped onto the stage to give her speech, Mariana paused for a moment, her voice filled with emotion. "Today, I am here not only because of my own efforts, but also thanks to the invaluable support of some very special people. She paused before continuing. To my husband, who has been by my side every step of the way, encouraging me to pursue my dreams. To my father-in-law, who welcomed me as a daughter and gave me strength in difficult times. Then, her gaze fell on Elena, and her eyes filled with tears as she said, "And of course to my dear mother, Elena. Mom, you gave me much more than the opportunity to study. You gave me a home, love, and the family I always dreamed of." Mariana's words resonated deeply with everyone present, but especially with Elena, who couldn't hold back the tears upon hearing Mariana call her Mom. The emotion overwhelmed her as she covered her face with her hands, feeling that, after years of searching and pain, she had finally reached the fulfillment she had longed for. At the end of the ceremony, Elena quickly approached Mariana, and the two embraced in a warm and meaningful hug, closing years of distance and healing old wounds. "My daughter," Elena whispered through tears, "you have filled my life in a way I never thought possible." Mariana, holding her affectionately, replied, "Mom, you taught me what love and family truly mean. I'm eternally grateful for everything." They left the ceremony hand in hand, full of hope and with the certainty that from that moment on, their lives would be filled with happiness. Their story became a powerful testament that maternal love can overcome any barrier, and that no matter the difficulties, a mother never stops searching for her child. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel to keep receiving inspiring stories almost every day. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you in the next story.